Yavapai Broadcasting and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers. Here's Cottonwood City Manager Doug Bartosh.
Hello, and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host and City Manager, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here today with Tim Malinsky, who's a council member, but more importantly for today, he's the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission. And it was a commission, it's probably one of our newer commissions. How long has the commission been in place now?
We've been in place now for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and kind of talk about why it was started, because I know you were a big proponent behind the Historic Preservation Commission.
I was, thanks. Yeah, when I served on Planning and Zoning Commission about 8 years ago, I became interested in trying to form a Historic Preservation Commission. The need to me became greater when the Strahan House was demolished there on Main Street on the Knackard property, and I saw that as, I think it was the second oldest home in Cottonwood, and I felt it was a shame that there wasn't any kind of mechanism in place to save that structure. So I felt like forming a Historic Preservation Commission might give the city an avenue to preserve some of the history that we have here in Cottonwood. So started working through city staff with it, and had good support from the city manager, and we were able to get it formed. Yeah.
You know, and I know, I mean, you really have a group of folks, particularly in the Old Town area, although not exclusively to Old Town, that are really interested in seeing, you know, our historic buildings preserved, because there is a great history here in Cottonwood, and you know, it's most concentrated in Old Town, although we really have historic structures or places all over the city.
That's right. Yeah, we have a lot of history that's just scattered throughout. You know, Clemenceau was a wonderful historic district. A lot of those buildings aren't there anymore, but all throughout Cottonwood, even on the far fringes, there's old ranch homes and everything that are historic as well. But certainly the biggest concentration would be in the Old Town area. And we do currently have a commercial historic district in there that's on the National Register. Yeah,
that's right. And a lot of people may not know that. Where is that? I mean, describe that for people. And
so it runs in Old Town. It runs from bridge to bridge. So there's two stone bridges that sort of, you know, are the entry into the Old Town commercial district. So basically all those storefronts and everything along Main Street from the one stone bridge to the other, all within that National Register.
And what does that mean?
It basically means it's administered through the National Park Service, so it's a federal program. There really aren't any mechanisms in place to preserve those buildings through the federal government. So that's really why we wanted to form the Cottonwood Historic Preservation Commission, to obtain our certified local government status, so that we could have some local control over what happens with the preservation efforts with those buildings.
And that's really, I know we've talked about that, particularly in the meetings, the certified local government, and talk a little bit about that. Who administers that, and what does that mean for Cottonwood if we achieve that designation?
So the certified local government is, that too is administered through the National Park Service on a federal level, but it trickles down to each and every state, and every state has a state historic preservation office. So we have one here. It's based down in Phoenix. So to obtain our certified local government status through them would then allow Cottonwood to get any grant money that would become available that's administered through the federal government, that would be given to Arizona SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. So any kind of grant money that comes through the city of Cottonwood, if they get there, once we get our CLG status, and we're just a couple weeks away on that, we'll be eligible to receive some grant money.
And certainly it seems like that has been a long time in coming.
It has been. It's a complicated process. You know, we have to have an ordinance in place that establishes us as a commission. We have to be composed of members that have backgrounds in historic preservation or architecture. there's just a lot of moving parts to it. You have to get all the pieces in place and then send in your application, and we are ready to send that application in at this point. So hopefully before long we'll hear back and get our status.
You know, and I know a big piece of that was also the ordinance. And the ordinance, if you can kind of talk a little bit about the ordinance and kind of what that covers.
The ordinance just establishes a Cottonwood Historic Preservation Commission. It establishes our capacity to do different levels of historic preservation and varying levels of basically we're going to start within just the commercial historic district that we have now currently.
Right.
But the ordinance that the council approved does allow us to do overlay districts and work out into the surrounding neighborhoods. So it really just establishes how the commission can operate, what powers and duties we'll have, again, all around historic preservation. So where I would like to start, and I believe the commission feels the same way, is to start landmarking key properties in the historic districts that we have, and that ordinance allows us to do that. And landmarking is just a process where we work with a homeowner, and this is something that would be really it would start from the homeowner. A homeowner would elect to have their property landmarked. The commission wouldn't be able to do that without homeowners' consent. But it's basically a way to acknowledge significant property in Cottonwood. So just an individual property, if you have a historic property that you think is of significance and you want to landmark that property, then we would make that happen through the commission.
And then if you landmark it, then I assume the ordinance would require that if you do a remodel or something like that, you want to try and maintain that historic character of the building.
That's correct. Yeah. Any changes that you do that are significant changes, yeah, you would want to try to maintain the historic character, like you said, and that's something that would need to be directed through the Historic Preservation Commission. So, for example, if you had a landmark property and you wanted to do an addition onto it, either way you'd have to get plans drawn up and go through the city because you need to get a building permit for that.
Right.
But as part of that process, you would also go before the Historic Preservation Commission and present to them your plans, and then they would give guidance as far as how to make that addition that you wanted to do onto your home fit the historic character and also the context of the neighborhood. It's not just one home in a vacuum, but it's also the context of the surrounding neighborhood.
You know, and I think one of the important parts that I know people kind of get concerned about, particularly living in a historic district, is the ability to opt out, which they are entitled to do by our ordinance, where if you don't want to become a landmark property or a building, you have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to do that.
That's correct. I believe that's Prop 207 that gives Arizona that right.
Yeah.
Also, as part of that ordinance that the council adopted, the Historic Preservation Commission has the capacity now, and we're just in the preliminary stages of discussing it, of creating an overlay district. So again, the landmark is something that a property owner would elect to do as a way to make their homes more special and meaningful. Okay, so but an overlay district would encompass an entire neighborhood potentially, and then that whole neighborhood could fall under the umbrella of the Historic Preservation Commission, and any changes within that neighborhood, if you lived within that neighborhood, you would need to come before the Historic Preservation for guidance on how to do whatever changes or modifications to your home. So, but you could opt out of that, and it's your right. If you don't want to be part of that district, it's certainly your right to not be a part of that district. I don't think we're going to have that issue in Cottonwood because there are so many benefits to being part of a historic district that I don't really feel that, and many people would opt out. But it's certainly your right to do so. You can opt in and out as many times as you want within that 3-year window, and it's up to the homeowner.
Let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the benefits, because I think there are a lot of benefits to being in a historic district. So come back and join us. Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here with Tim Alinsky, one of our council members for the city, and also the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. And Tim and I were talking about the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and you were talking about an overlay and the ability for people to opt in or opt out. And obviously, you know, I would think there'd be a lot of benefits to opting in, and maybe you can talk a little bit about those. And
certainly, some of the key benefits to opting in and being within a historic preservation district are your property values certainly go up. That's just a known fact at this point. They've done a lot of research nationwide, and people within historic districts certainly have experienced higher property values. People tend to care for their properties more. There's just it's a tighter knit community. If you can see what's happened down in Phoenix with some of their historic neighborhoods, they all have their own newsletters and potluck barbecues, and it creates a wonderful sense of a neighborhood, of a true neighborhood. So that's one of the benefits. There's also tax benefits, and through the Historic Preservation Commission, we'd like to be able to assist homeowners in acquiring some of the tax benefits to having a historic home. Those are both for commercial and residential. There's tax benefits for federal and state taxes. There's a great wealth of knowledge that we have on the commission. So being in the district, what we'd like to do is to have a survey where we've surveyed all the homes and
sorry about
that's
that.
All right. Have a resource available to the homeowner so they can come in and meet with members of the commission and get all the information that we have on their home. Who was the builder? Who were some of the significant people that lived there? You know, what modifications were done through the years, and just provide that information to the homeowner so they can better understand where their home has been throughout history.
Yeah, which would be a great thing to have. I know I've walked in historic areas where, you know, the houses have plaques on them and talks about when it was built and who lived there and those kind of things. And, you know, I think of some of the wonderful historic areas down in Phoenix, like the Arcadia district, or even further in Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, and even Prescott has a beautiful old residential area. The houses are just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
I'm not sure we have that same level of housing stock in some of our historic areas, but certainly houses that are kind of unique in terms of our history, and the ability to kind of restore those and fix them up would be fantastic.
Yeah, Cottonwood, I think, has a wide variety of housing stock in it. Prescott, the downtown Prescott area was certainly built within a certain time period, but in Cottonwood, we've got some old, like I said earlier, some ranch homes that were built, you know, turn of the century. The historic district in Old Town, of course, is around the 20s and 30s. Right. But certainly, you know, homes ranging from, my home in Old Town was a miner shack that was dragged down from Jerome. So there's a lot of homes that were transplanted. They were miner shacks dragged down into Old Town, placed on a new foundation. Certainly a lot of site-built craftsman-style bungalows, and just a wide variety, which I think is what makes Old Town so unique, is the variety of housing stock that we have. It
is kind of an eclectic area in terms of the housing stock, and And you know, and the other piece of that obviously is the commercial as well. You know, I know we've had some great you know, remodels of property down there. And you know, one that I really like is the senior center, which used to be an old train repair shop or
That's
whatever,
right. Yeah.
and is now the senior center, which is absolutely spectacular in terms of how that's been redone. I know the old Ledbetter Law Firm was in I guess the superintendent's house, the mining superintendent's house.
Oh, that's correct. Up on Willard, yeah, that's
which
right.
is, again, is a beautiful structure. And then Rainbow Acres is in another not Rainbow Acres.
Yes, the Arc.
Yes, the Arc, is in another beautiful structure. But even in the Old Town area, you know, we have the old jail, which we have restored as much as possible to its original look, you know, which is certainly challenging. And I know there's a lot of other stuff going on that people are trying to bring it back to, you know, original or usable kind of look.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think in terms of creating that role where the commission plays and helps guide people in maintaining that historic feel of our historic assets, I think is really, really great. And, I mean, how do you see that role taking place?
I do. I see our role really as assisting folks in restoring their properties. I certainly don't want to see the commission be heavy-handed, and I want to see Old Town and the rest of the historic properties in Cottonwood be able to express their uniqueness and not, you know, have to abide by certain color schemes. And there's certainly a lot of fear that goes into that, because I know a lot of other historic districts in other parts of the state have really inhibited, I think, creativity in their historic district. And I certainly don't want to see our historic commission do that. I think people are attracted to Cottonwood, particularly Old Town, because it is eclectic and a little funky. So, and I want to celebrate that. And I really see the commission just being, you know, the guiding hand and letting folks know what the history was. If they're making modifications, we would let them know what is most suitable for that building, given the context of, you know, the adjacent buildings and structures, and really just letting folks know what is the significance of that building, who lived there, what did they do. Cottonwood just, again, has a wonderfully rich history. A lot of characters came through Cottonwood.
You know, and it is interesting. I mean, we live on the same street, and my house is very historical. It was built in 2006, but you know, thankfully the guy who designed it and built it made it look at least like it fits to some extent. But there's some great historic properties around us. I mean, down the street was the old pool hall, which has kind of been redone, and whoever did that did a very nice job of it.
That's right.
And I know down your way, and certainly Paul Cates across the street. But I think it's got a lot of potential to see people come in. In fact, the house across the street from me was Joe Hall's house,
That's
the
right.
bootlegging king of Arizona. And I mean, what a great historic piece of property. It'd be great to see somebody come in and kind of revitalize that and rehab it. And
you have brothels across the street from you too on the other corner.
The little small white houses. And, so I think, you know, it is, there really is such a unique history in Cottonwood. You know, it's really fun to explore it and talk about it, and we really should treasure what we have. So.
And I'm hoping through the landmarking process that we'll be able to have plaques that homeowners can put up on their home to display what their home was historically, and again, just as a way to celebrate the home that you live in.
You know, and I think you're right. If people know what the history is, I mean, then it becomes a source of pride. And you know, they probably would be a lot more interested in fixing it up and trying to restore it back to kind of that original look.
Definitely.
So let's take our next break and come back and join us, and we'll talk a little bit more of our history in Cottonwood.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and here with Councilman Tim Alinsky, who is also the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission. And we're just talking about history in Cottonwood and the Historic Preservation Commission and our efforts to become a what is it again? Certified local government. Yep. To hopefully be able to bring in some funds and begin to restore some of our historic areas in Old Town. So, you know, obviously you enjoy your property, and I know it's never a finished project. There's always something going on, and it's the same at my house. But do other properties in the area that really catch your eye as opposed, I mean, as a point of pride for the city and something we need to really focus on? And obviously what comes to mind for me right away is the Civic Center.
Absolutely, yeah. The Civic Center is, I think, one of the most unique properties we have in Cottonwood. I wish Glenda Farley were here because she could tell you the exact history on it, but I believe it was built by the Women's Civic Club right around the Depression through the WPA. There's a famous architect that built it. I'm not going to butcher the name. I really am not as well versed as Glenda is on that, but it's a building in Cottonwood that certainly needs
Some
restored.
attention.
Yeah, and there's several in the Old Town area, but that one is just ripe for restoration. I really hope that can be a pet project of the commission once some funds are freed up from the state. It has just great potential, and anyone who's been in there for dancing knows the potential that building has.
Yeah, we did a tour through that, which I think you did today too, and just looking at some of the old stuff that's kind of stored in there was interesting. But and I know that's been a real focus of the city council, is trying to get some money invested in that property to get it restored, and we really need to do that because it's a great community asset, and you know, it's just got a great history.
Yeah. The Historic Preservation Commission will be touring that building as well tomorrow, Wednesday evening. So,
you know, and it was interesting. I was in a restaurant last night, which I won't plug, but they had they have a big gigantic picture of their building back when, and it shows the North Rock Bridge, and there's a sign in the picture, and they didn't know what exactly what era the picture was, but I'm trying to think of what the letters were. It wasn't WPA though. It was like
CCC.
No, it wasn't CCC. It was a program. I looked it up. I Googled it, and it turns out it was a program that was started by Franklin D. Roosevelt that ran from November of 1933 until March of 1934. So not very long, but you know, it gave us the opportunity to kind of date that picture because they were actually out there building the bridge, and it looks like maybe the rock, you know, kind of wall extended farther than it is today.
Yeah, that rock wall, I believe, extended up Cactus Street. Even there's still evidence of it there in the wash on Cactus Street.
That's right. It is. So, any other buildings that kind of pique your interest?
Boy, there's so many gems in the Old Town area and in the Main and Mingus neighborhood. You know, I'm fascinated by some of the homes that were transplanted into the Old Town area. You know, I would like to see in part of our efforts of putting the survey together that we categorize the different types of homes that there are, and there's certainly quite a few. I know 4 or 5 off the top of my head that were dragged down from Jerome.
Yeah. It seems like that must have been a gigantic task.
I think it definitely was, but after the mines closed up there, there was a company that did it for real cheap. I understand you get a home up there for $50. They just wanted the homes hauled out of there so they didn't attract hippies, which they did. So yeah, that's something that's significant, I think, and kind of unique here in Old Town. And then there's some of the smelter brick homes. There's 3 or 4 smelter brick homes in Cottonwood, which is another unique. As part of the smelting process, they would make these brick, and there are still a few homes left here in Cottonwood that they built with those brick. There's just really a great variety of homes.
You know, the other one I think about too is City Hall, or not City Hall, the council chambers. I think that's one of the oldest buildings in Old Town.
Yes, it's, gosh, again, if Glenda Farley were here, she's a member of our commission. She has a wealth of information, and she could tell you every last bit on that building. I think it was I'm not going to say it. Marionette, I think, was the original owner and builder. Yeah, it's certainly a unique one.
And then I know Ryan flashed up a picture of City Hall, and City Hall used to be the post office.
Yeah, also now historic.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting building. And building next to that used to be the fire department at one time, and just a lot of great history. And you know, if anybody is interested, I know you have an opening and a need for volunteers. You want to make a plug?
Yes, please. Yeah, we have one opening on the Historic Preservation Commission. We really encourage folks to apply. We've really got all the nuts and bolts out of the way now. You know, we've been operating, like I said, for about 2 years. So the ordinance has been adopted by council. We've got the application that's ready to be sent off for our CLG status. So the mind-numbing paperwork is complete now, and now we're starting to work on the fun stuff.
Right.
And what we'll be going over tomorrow evening is our design review guidelines, and this will be sort of the list of guidelines that we follow if we have a presentation. You know, someone comes before the HPC to discuss their project. We'll have design guidelines that we'll follow to assist them with their project. So we'll be going over those tomorrow evening, and just doing the much more fun stuff.
So, and tell the audience how often you meet, when you meet, where you meet.
Okay, so we meet every second Wednesday at 6 p.m. We meet at the City Council chambers in Old Town.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's open to the public. Anybody who wants to come down and participate or hear what the commission's doing, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
We've got just about a minute. Future plans.
Okay, so future plans, I really would like to focus on our landmarking projects. I would really like to see the commission take a few steps forward and get some key properties landmarked. Probably the first one would be the Civic Center. Right. Get those landmarked and designated. I would like to see plaques for the historic homes that are landmarked that would, you know, resemble what the National Register has, that people could put on the front of their home. And I'd like to see sign toppers in Old Town, which would designate that you are in a historic district. Those would be on top of the city signs.
I like that idea.
Yeah, just to let folks know that you are in a historic district, and we do celebrate our history in Cottonwood.
Absolutely, and it really is a great. If you ever get a chance to talk to Glenda Farley or even Karen Leff at the Cottonwood Hotel, both of them have a wealth of information. But I think Glenda actually was born and raised here, and
she was, has an old family history here, and
back ways. So
piles upon piles of information.
And she always every now and then sends me information, which is always very interesting to read. Well, I want to thank my guest Tim for coming in and letting us know about historic preservation, and I want to thank you for joining us. Come back and join us again.